Hello, literature lovers. Today I am going to discuss Middlemarch, a study of provincial life. It's a novel by English author George Eliot, who is actually a female author. Real name is Mary Ann Evans. It appeared in 8 installments starting from 1871 to 72. The setting is quite fictitious. Uh, Town of England named Midlands, and the time period mentioned in which the work belong is 1829 to 1832. Its use of great themes including status of women, nature of marriage, idealism, self-interest, religion, hypocrisy, political reform, education, name what the great elements, and it contains some comic elements too, but realism really talk about it, and the historical events revolve around, and especially a very important event, that is the 1832 Reform Act. Talking about early railways, this is also a very important historical event. And another very historical event is accession of King William the Fourth. All these three elements really remain a very important thing. Now talking about how the work remains so important, and that is the major themes of the work that really revolve around, not starting with the only thought that how it was there, how the story talking about Miss Brooke, and the first section of the work is revolving around it, and the other sections really try to open up with the process and the incorporation process of Middlemarch all started with the language, and the later on volumes were infected by it, and especially the publisher used a very great trick how the novel should be, and the machinery is used, the intellect, the narrative voice is quite special. It's really good work, and you can see how it's really it's like a woven work. It's kind of the framing is quite special, the characters, the channels they use, the theme that follows it has something really, not talking about a subtitle, in fact it is talking about the provincial life and how the fictitious town set here is really in real life. It is talking about the Warwickshire, that's a place in England that talking about, and it is being called the silk ribbon manufacturing town. So you can talk about it how the whole center, and there is a fusion of the two senses of the provincialism is being used here, and it's kind of unsophisticated, or you can say the narrow mindedness is there that revolves around it. And there are many critics, and in fact there is a relation to the Matthew Arnold discussion of social class in England, where he talk about it in his work Culture and Anarchy, which was published in 1869. So this point is also, and in fact another critic, Steedman, suggested that Middlemarch is a portrait of Philistine provincialism. So that is a very special thought, and we can take a female perspective of it. The woman question always arises, and how it is, and it is said that Saint Teresa was the center figure, just like Miss Brooke. So Miss Brooke in real life can be characterized with Saint Teresa. This is another very important point. Not talking about some of the Greek mythology being used here, starting with Antigone, a figure from Greek mythology and best known for Sophocles' play Antigone, and is given in the finale as the further example of the heroic woman. So this is another perspective. There is so much to talk about it. In fact, the author Henry James described the characters had the concentrated fervor essential in the man chosen by so noble and tremendous heroine. Now, talking about marriage is also one of the major themes in it, and in fact, according to the critic George Steiner said that both principal plots, especially both of Dorothea and Litigate, both of them are case studies of unsuccessful marriage. So we can say both marriages were unsuccessful, and it is a very principal point. And at that time, marriage was quite important. And within this account is the suggestion that the lives of Dorothy and Lydgate are unsuccessful because of these disastrous marriages. And this is arguably more the case for Lydgate than for Dorothy, who obtains a second chance through her eventual marriage to Will Litzrow. And however, a favorable interpretation of this marriage is dependent upon the character of Litzrow himself, whom numerous critics have viewed as Dorothy's inferior. That is another point that I would like to mention. And in this regard, there is another character, Fred, that resembles Henry Fielding's character, famous character, Tom Jones. That is something I was talking about. And both characters being molded into a good husband by love, and they give to and receive from a woman. So if you are aware of Henry Fielding Tom Jones, you must be, aware of the fact about it. And Dorothy, I have already discussed that it is Saint Teresa, and born in the wrong century in the provincial Middlemarch, and who mistakes in her idealist, a poor, dry, mummified pedant, as a sort of angel vocation. And we can say Middlemarch, it is in part a Bildungsroman focusing on the psychological or moral growth of protagonist, in which Dorothy blindly gropes forward and making mistakes in her something foolish, often egotistical, but also admirably idealistic attempt to find a role or vocation with which to fulfill her nature. Now, talking about Litigate is equally mistaken in her choice of a marriage partner. It's not only about your choices also make difference, as her idea of a perfect wife is someone who can sing and play the piano and provide a soft cushion for her husband to rest after work. So that criteria can be taken into consideration. So he marries Rosamund Vinci, the woman in the novel who most contrasts with Dorothy, with the result that he deteriorates from adorant researcher to fashionable doctor in London. That's all I would like to talk about today. I hope you will like it. Thanks.